After the 1996 Nader presidential campaign, which was our first presidential campaign, at that time we didn't yet have a fully functional national party. We had a lot of local green groups that were networking around the country, but a whole group of us got together in Middleburg, West Virginia, and we founded what at that time was called the Association of State Green Parties, and which ultimately became the Green Party of the United States, which of course then nominated Jill as our presidential campaign last year. And that meeting brought together a lot of really talented, forward-thinking people from around the country who hadn't really met beforehand. People who were green in a green movement sense, but also saw the need for electoral politics to represent that. And at that meeting, at this really cool old house out in the countryside, there was this young green from Madison, Wisconsin, who had come painfully close to winning, I believe it was a county supervisor seat by 3 or 4 votes. And I remember being impressed about how both polished and functional he was, but how he still held on to a really transformative vision of our society. And that person is our next speaker, Ben Manski. And Ben, I don't know, you'll tell us how young you were at the time, but this was mostly a room of a lot older people, and Ben held his own there, went on to become a co-chair of our national party, came very close to winning a state assembly seat in Wisconsin, and then was Jill's campaign manager. So for our next plenary session, please give a warm welcome to Ben Manski.
And I want people to know that Mike Feinstein, when he was mayor of Santa Monica, came out to Madison, Wisconsin, marched with us as we were protesting the corporate takeover of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And he has been a friend to the Wisconsin Greens for many years. And I really want to thank you for your support. And it's important to recognize that Mike Feinstein, as mayor, talking with Green City Council members in places like Madison and Milwaukee and the Twin Cities, and Boston and other parts of the country, has been an important part of the success of the Greens over the years. That kind of solidarity between Green elected officials and Green activists is really where our strength currently is. And the introduction he gave in some ways was really appropriate to what I want to address in a limited amount of time today, which is that I have been a member of the Green Party for many years. When I was in high school, a number of my friends decided we needed an environmental organization. And being student activists coming on the 20th anniversary of Earth Day, we came up with an acronym that we thought really captured the situation. Student Environmental Intervention for a Green Earth. How's that sound? Siege. Yeah, we're serious. Yeah, Earth is under siege. And some college students at the University of Wisconsin heard about this and reached out and invited us to a campus party, the UW Greens. And we all went to this campus party. We thought, wow, we're at a campus party with all these college students. And that's when I joined the Greens. And I've had the opportunity now, going on 23 years, to have grown up at least as an adult in the Green Party. And to see the party move forward at certain periods of time, and then have setbacks, and then put itself back together again and move forward. And it really is sort of like the ebbing and flowing of the tide, except for overall, we have been moving forward. And what I want to recognize right now is that we are in a period where the Greens have great opportunity to grow, to succeed as we never have before. It reminds me a lot of the period in the late 1990s, in which we had a Democratic president and a Republican Congress, and you had many people who had put their hopes in that president, who finally came to recognize that they needed an independent alternative, an independent voice. Now, I want to say something else about the 1990s. Throughout the 1990s, it was not clear that the Green Party was going to become that independent electoral voice. There were other efforts to build independent progressive parties in the US in the 1990s. I joined them. Probably some people in this room were active in these parties. The New Party, the Labor Party, they were better funded than the Greens. They had institutional support, millions of dollars. But the Greens, not the New Party, not the Labor Party, are not only still here, but we are the National Progressive Party, the opposition party, the revolutionary party in the United States when you go to vote. today. And that is not by happenstance, in my opinion. I do many things, just like everybody in this room has various things that we specialize in. One of them is I'm a sociologist. I am a scholar of social movements. And there are things about the Greens that are unique. One of them is that we are a values-based party. We have our 10 key values. Right? What are our 10 key values?
Nonviolence.
Nonviolence. Social justice.
Ecological wisdom.
Ecological wisdom.
Feminism or equality.
Feminism or gender equality.
Grassroots democracy.
Grassroots democracy and diversity. Future focus. Okay, it's almost always one of the later key values. In this case, I think it's incredibly important. Future focus is one of our 10 key values. And that's not a coincidence that the Greens have always been focused on the future. And being future focused can have benefits. It can have benefits because when things get bad, you may have been right in predicting that they were going to get bad in certain ways, and you may have some answers for people. But you may not only have answers in terms of the policies that have to be implemented to address the problems that we're facing. You may have answers that actually get at the root causes of the problem. And so the Greens, as a future-focused party founded in the 1980s here in the United States and North America and inspired by efforts internationally that came out of the 1970s in Germany and Kenya and New Zealand, have been looking forward for many years. And we have been talking about climate crisis, austerity, the corporate takeover of our society, the corporatization of everyday life, from our schools to our prisons, to our welfare system, to our military, with more women and men serving in private military companies overseas than are members of the U.S. Armed Forces in Iraq and Afghanistan. The corporatization of the human genome, of the genetic code, the basis of life. The corporatization of our law, with consumers being forced into corporate courts. All those agreements we signed, right? Every aspect of life has been subject to corporatization. The Greens have been taking on these problems for many years. And now we are in a moment, today we are in a moment in which the Green analysis is looked for. The understanding that we embody, especially ecological wisdom, is looked for. And while there are others, there are other parties, there are other people who engage in politics who are now finally attempting to find words to describe not only the problems and solutions, they don't really get it. They don't really get it. So this is our moment. This is our opportunity. And I would suggest to you that the Greens, having gone through a long period of movement building and development, I mean, for any frustration anybody in this room may feel about the functionality of the Green Party today, let me tell you, it was much worse before. It was much harder before. And things are much better today, right? They are much better today. And they're better because, not only because people are ready for Greens to serve in elective office and they're ready to vote for Greens as they never have been before, but also because we have experience, we have institutional knowledge. You know, I run into this a lot. I run into people on the left who say, you know, yeah, I'm willing to support the Green Party, but we really need a strong, independent, progressive party. and you know, maybe the Greens can become part of that. And we had some of those conversations this past year with a gentleman who I greatly respect, the former mayor of Salt Lake City, Rocky Anderson, great progressive voice, said, I'm going to form a party. The Greens can join it. But the thing is that these people don't realize how difficult it is. Right? They don't have the experience of building an independent political party in this electoral system. It's hard work, right? It's hard work, and it requires dedication, it requires a commitment to the long term, and I think that one of the things that has kept us going is, again, that Green analysis, the Green values, and the idea that we need to fundamentally transform not only our politics, but our economy and our culture and our law, right? The Greens are, in essence, a revolutionary party operating within an electoral arena, and that is not an easy thing to do, right? But we have some practice with it. We have some practice with getting people on the ballot. We have some practice with litigating. We have some practice with what to do when you're shut out of the debates. We have some practice with how do you convince voters who were born into other political parties to try something new. And we are in a moment that is opportune. I want to talk a little bit about Green Party strategy moving forward. Some of the things I say may or may not be new to you. There is a lineage to independent politics in this country that we are a part of. Right? And we can look at that history and take some lessons from it and see what worked and what didn't work so well. When people were trying to build political parties that would allow social movements to also be independent. That's the job of an independent party in the abstract. Whether it's called the Labor Party or the Green Party, the Progressive Party or the Women's Party, whatever the party is, the job of an independent political party is to liberate social movements so they can be independent too. Because as I think we've all seen, what ends up happening when you have just two parties that are established and enshrined in law and where the courts protect them from challenge, like the Democrats and Republicans, that social movements end up spending more time trying to protect the people in power than the people in power try to protect the people who put them there. In other words, I believe, and I think Greens believe, and anybody who believes in independent politics believes, that the function of parties should be to serve people, not to have, the function of parties should be to serve social movements, not to have social movements serve them, right? The problem that we see in the student movement, and the labor movement, the environmental movement today, and civil rights movement, so many areas of the larger progressive movement, is that people leave their jobs at the Sierra Club or at the, as president of a union, and then they go to work for the people they were lobbying. And then when that person loses office or moves on, they leave their job as an aide, and they go back to working in the student movement or the labor movement and so on, right? So one of our responsibilities as an independent progressive party in the American tradition is to liberate social movements. There are other parties that have done this throughout American history. And I want to recognize that the Greens in the US are both inspired by Greens in other parts of the world, but also uniquely American. There is some American exceptionalism here. Okay? We're inspired by the success of Greens in other parts of the world, but we are actually literally the descendants of the people who built the Progressive Party, the Socialist Party, the Communist Party, the American Labor Party, the Farm Labor Party, the Republican Party, back when it was a radical party that was attacked for its communistic values of free love and free women. Okay? And you can trace that history. In my state of Wisconsin, there's an incredible history. People who were in the political ascendancy at the time that Wisconsin became a state had a political fight with Virginians. Right? There were a lot of Virginians who came in early on. Henry Dodge. Get out of Dodge, that's that guy, right? He's a Virginian. Okay? He was the first territorial governor, but he ended up moving west. Why? Because other people came in. Yankees from New England and New York. Liberty Party men and women. Free Soil Party activists. Right? And they were joined by exiles from the revolutions of 1848. The 48ers, right? Karl Schurz, president of the German Commune, settled in Wisconsin. Okay? And they got together and they got along. And they founded a party called the Republican Party in 1854. They did advocate for the right to vote for immigrants, for respecting the treaties, for abolition of slavery, certainly, for the rights of labor, for so much more. And then when the Republican Party had been co-opted by those East Coast industrialists, and also accomplished some things along the way, by the way, that wing of the Republican Party joined in forming the Progressive Party and the Socialist Party. And guess what? In Wisconsin today, the people who founded the Wisconsin Greens in the early 1980s, some of those people had been members of the Progressive Party. When we had the National Green Party Convention in Milwaukee in 2004, some of you may remember that our honorary chairman was Frank Zeidler, the last socialist mayor of Milwaukee, right? So why do I sort of tie us in there to that history? Well, first of all, let's recognize that we are not just sort of, the Greens didn't just spring up, that we do have deep roots in the history of this country, and those roots extend to every liberation movement that has changed this country for the better. And that there are lessons from those movements. The Socialist Party, for example, had a strategy which today would be characterized as moving from strength to strength. The Socialist Party built up citadels where the Socialist Party had power in the teens and the 20s and even into the 50s, even through the McCarthy era. The Socialist Party ran Pittsburgh, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Boston, Seattle, St. Louis, Cincinnati, and on and on. And they did that by taking on the party machine. And in some ways, the obstacles they had at the ballot box in those local elections were greater than the obstacles we face today. In some ways, they had it easier, right? But it was hard, I'll tell you that. It was very hard. Many of them went to prison, went to jail. Their strategy involved winning elections at the local level and building a national and an international resistance on the basis of those local victories. Okay? That's what we have the opportunity to do now. We are entering a green moment in which we can move from several hundred Greens serving an elective office across the country, some mayors, city council people in a few major cities, to in 5 years, Greens holding the mayorships and the city council majorities in 5 medium to large cities around the country. Minneapolis, St. Paul, both of those cities could go green. Seattle, Portland, Oregon, San Francisco, we came so close, right? Madison, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Boston. There are many cities around the country where we have the capacity to do that. And as we do that, we'll be able to show people what happens when you elect Greens to office and give them governing power, right? As they have done, frankly, in Brazil and in Germany and in increasingly in Scotland and the United Kingdom. We have the ability to have a process that takes us from here to there. I'm going to check for the time here. Normally in this talk, I would talk about the nature of the crisis we face, but we had an excellent exposition on that today. What I want to convey to you in this brief period of time is that we're ready for this moment. You're ready for this moment. The campaign schools have been happening around the country following the 2012 election, have brought together literally hundreds of activists and people who are new to the Green Party, people who have been at it for a long time. There are incredible people who are running for office right now. Some of them have already won office since we began this process. I want to say especially to those who are maybe in their early 20s and late 20s today, you have a base to build on. You're not starting from scratch. You also have some really serious challenges. Ain't nobody gonna solve it but you. And what I would like to do at this point is to call up 3 people and turn this plenary into a discussion. And I specifically want to ask Ruskell Kayange, who is a Green elected official, a member of the Board of Trustees at Napa Community College. Our Green elected officials are the best elected officials money can't buy. I want to call up Alex Shantz. Where's Alex? From Napa. He's also on staff with Stein for President here in California. And it's been my honor to get to meet you and get to know you a little better, Alex. And June Brashers, who played a pivotal role in putting this together. Yeah, I'm actually gonna focus on folks here, just because you took the time to take the day to be here with us. So what we're gonna do is a session that looks at the fact that we are a party that is different from the other political parties in one key way. And the fact that we are different in that key aspect creates a very special set of problems for us. Okay? And I'm going to frame this question, and I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to respond to it. We're going to take 2 to 3 minutes each. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to take 5 people from among all of you. Give your questions or comments in response. And we're going to go back and forth like this. And the times that we've done this in New York, Minnesota, it was great. I'm looking forward to this conversation. So, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, it's not quite a game show, but... So, what is a political party? What is a political party? I would suggest to you that a political party is not one thing, but is a series of things. There are a number of different aspects to political parties in the United States. There is the political party at the ballot box. That is the political party that shows up on election day, the voters. It is also the political party that is the people who run elections. In the case of the Democrats and Republicans, that political party is a multi-billion-dollar industry. But it is a set of people who have a particular set of values that are different than some of the other aspects of the political party. There's the political party elections. Okay? There's the political party in government. It's different. Yes, elected officials run for office, but guess what? When they get into office, you know who they're talking to most of the time? They're talking to each other. They're talking to staff. That is true not only of Democrats and Republicans, it's true of Greens. They're doing their jobs. And in my experience, the political party in government is sometimes better than the political party in elections. I find Democratic elected officials and Republican elected officials much easier to deal with than the political operators that run their campaigns. Okay? They have different sets of interests. This is true for Greens as well. Our elected officials, where we have had success, where Greens win local office, our elected officials spend a lot of time in committee meetings, days of committee meetings every week, votes, keeping up with things, doing their job. Okay? Third, there is the political party as a tribe. Political parties are tribes. People are born into political parties. This is true not only of the Ds and the Rs, it is now true of the Green Party. And that's a good thing for us. There are activists that I know in different parts of the country, including, I'll give you one that bear this out. One young woman who is active with the Four Lakes Green Party in Madison, Wisconsin. Her parents were co-founders of the DC Statehood Green Party. I met her when she lived in DC. Now she's involved in Madison. She's in her 20s, right? You're born into these parties. They're parties that represent our values. It's a sense of identity, for better and for worse. Somebody in the last workshop that I was involved in was talking about the Green Bay Packers. And why don't the Greens in Wisconsin make more use of the Green Bay Packers? And he's right. I mean, there is a tribalism to this. It's a little bit like sports. In the worst of times, what it is my team's, I'm going for my team, the other team going down, right? And even the Greens, we have aspects to this too, right? There is also the party in the streets. And this is how we are different from the Democrats and the Republicans, and for the most part from the Libertarians as well. We are a party of the streets. We are a social movement party that is organizing protests, that is organizing community gardens, that is pushing forward the policy agenda, that is in the leadership of some movements in this country. The anti-war movement, if you were to go around and identify who are the 20 top anti-war leaders in the United States over the last 15 years, almost to a last one, they are Greens, right? Certainly true of the movement around constitutional reform, move to amend, other movements. We are a party of the streets. So, that's my frame up, and this is where I'm going to lead to you guys. This causes some special challenges for us. Because when you are a party of the streets, and you are engaged in elections, in an electoral arena that was designed to prevent you from succeeding. We have election laws that were written to keep the Communist Party and the Socialist Party out of office in the 1940s and the 1950s. When you are a party of the streets and you're dealing with an electoral arena that is designed to prevent you from succeeding, when you are a party of the streets and you actually succeed anyway and you elect people to office, and Ruscal's there and he's spending a lot of time with the other trustees, but he's also a movement guy, that creates some unique challenges for you, right? How do we overcome them? I want us to have this discussion because until we actually succeed in addressing this tension in our work, it will be very difficult for us to overcome this challenge and make it into something that fuels us. So